Well, hello again. Unfortunately, YouTube Live is not working on Sunday morning, so I came to you this morning. One and most of chapter 2 as well. Hard times and life lessons. And I hope you're enjoying this series of Esther. This is part 2. The story is told of a husband who was heading off to work one day. He was running a little late. He was running out the door, and his wife said, "Hey, honey, I bet you don't know what today is." And the husband was perplexed. How would I ever forget such a day? Well, he turned off and caught his bus to work. At 10 a.m., the doorbell rang, and the wife opened the door, and she was handed a box of a dozen long-stemmed roses. Then at 1 p.m., a foil-wrapped 2-pound box of candy comes to the door. Later on that day, a boutique delivers a designer dress. The wife could not wait for her husband to get home. The husband confidently returned from work, feeling satisfied that he had recovered what could have been a most horrible situation. His wife warmly welcomed her husband, saying, "Oh, my dear, my darling, first the flowers, then the chocolates, then the dress. I have never had a better groundhog day in all my life." Now, there are many special days in our lives. Most of our days are regular days, rather predictable days, day after day for the most part. We could enter into our diary the same words, just another regular day, nothing special. But then there are those other ordinary days that begin very normally and predictably, but become extraordinary. Those kinds of days come surprisingly out of nowhere, and they can change the course of our lives. Like Noah, like for example, day after day, a drought. Nothing new, but he's building a boat in the middle of that drought. And every day was the same old, building a boat, stopping, no rain, drought, day after day. Getting the animals up on the boat, still no rain. But then this ordinary and the rain begins to fall. Or how about the day in the Judean hillside when a Jewish teenager boy named David was tending his father's sheep, minding his own business, same old day after day. Little did David know that Samuel would come and anoint him as the next king of Israel. Then how about the day? The day that Jesus was born, then the day that he was raised from the dead. No one expected those things to happen on those days. What about the great day yet to come, when the great Lord will return to bring his church home? Every day. Sir, no, when an ordinary day is going to become a pivotal and extraordinary day. It reminds me of my wife and I, when we first got married. 3 years into our marriage, we still have no child. We've been trying. We've seen doctors, and they're starting to do infertility testing. Um, and so finally, we want to take that plunge, right? Same old, same news day after day. And we have to take a pregnancy test before we do anything else. And wouldn't you know it, that ordinary day turned extraordinary, and we had our daughter on the way. What a great day, right? We expected the normal, but something extraordinary happened. That's why we must be faithful. We must be watchful. We do not know when each of us may be. That's exactly how it happened one day in Esther's life. If you learned last week, Esther was an unknown, orphaned, young Jewish woman whose life was absolutely had no connection with the most powerful man in the Persian Empire, King Hadassah. In his providential tapestry, God was weaving these two unrelated lives together. Esther's launch day begins like any other day. We look at Esther, chapter 1, verse 1. Now, in the days of Ahasuerus, um, he reigned from India to Ethiopia over 127 provinces. In those days, when the king sat at his royal throne in Susa, the citadel, in the third year of his reign, he gave a feast for all his officials and servants. The army of Persia and Media and the nobles and the governors and the provinces were before him, having a party. Oh hum, just another of his reign. We notice that the king is in his third year of his reign. We also notice that the king gave a banquet. Nothing too unusual about this night. Kings were always throwing parties. That was just part of their life. However, as we will see, this banquet was very extravagant. while he showed the riches of his royal glory and the splendor and pomp of his greatness for many days, 180 days they partied. That's 6 months parties or celebrity blowouts look a little stingy, a little small potluck. But for 6 months, every kind of exhibition displayed the majesty of the glory of the king. Surely this included loud music, wild dancing, too much eating, too much drinking. If all that weren't enough, then the one party ended, and what happens? Another party begins. And when these days were completed, the king gave all the garden of the king's palace. So rather than just having the officials, nobles, and military at the party, the king now opened the doors and let everybody, from the least to the greatest. Surely they came by the thousands, and that party lasted for 7 more days. And then this party was extravagant, and they give a description in verses 6 through 8. The white cotton curtains, the violet hangings fastened with cords of fine linen and purple silver rods, and marble pillars and kinds. And the drinking was according to this edict. There is no compulsion, meaning do what you want, have as much as you want, have as little as you want. For the king had given orders to all the staff of his palace to do as each one desired. The glory of this sight must have been mind-boggling. And as expected, there was plenty of alcohol. It was a celebration of a lifetime, truly a banquet to be remembered. But there was someone very important missing, and her name is Queen Vashti. Why was she not there? Well, we find that out right quick. Queen Vashti also gave a party. She gave a feast for the women of the palace that belonged to her king. So no problem. The queen's throwing a party, the king's throwing a party, little guys and girls gathering, right? But then something happened. Expecting that something would happen that would change the course of their lives, but that is what took place. On the seventh day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded his 7 princes who served in the presence of the king and 7 eunuchs to bring Queen Vashti before the king with her royal crown, in order to show the priest and the princess her beauty, for she was lovely to look at. Whenever people party too long and too hard, usually some kind of negative, detrimental thing takes place, right? The king, in his inebriated state, decided to show off yet another one of his prizes, the physical beauty of his wife. The king ordered that his wife, the queen, parade herself before his drunken guests for them to enjoy and envy. Surely nothing good can come out of that, you know? Scholars have debated what this means as far as their queen parading before the people. Some thought that she did it without her veil, which was a big no-no back in Persia during these days. Some suggested that she just had nothing on but her crown, which is also a big no-no. But what does the queen do? The queen Vashti refused to come at the king's command, delivered by the eunuchs. At this, the king became enraged, and his anger burned within him. So here we see one of those pivotal moments, one of those moments of conflict, where how people respond can change the course of a person's life, or even the course of a nation. The king made a request he never should have made. When forced, the queen to take the stand she did not really want to take. Obviously, King Harassers was not used to being said no to, and she refused to do what he said. No doubt his drunkenness contributed to all of this, both his inebriation or his inappropriate request and his angry response. What should a king do? What did the king do? Well, then the king said to his wife, or to his wife, excuse me, who knew the times, according to the law, what is it to be done to the queen Vashti? Because she has not performed the command of King Harassers, delivered by the eunuch. He's asking his peeps, what should a king do? Every head of state has people around who want nothing more than to please their king. They're accused with the 7 eunuchs mentioned earlier, who were the king's household servants. These 7 princes were his cabinet, his advisors, and so he asked them, "What should we do?" And basically, one of his advisors, the Mordecai, said that we should give an edict that no woman should ever disobey her husband. No queen should ever disobey her king. This is not right. And so they gave an order, not to give an order, a decree, saying that women are to give honor to their husbands, high and low alike. Man, wow, that's crazy. I mean, a little over the top, don't you think? One wonders if Meckham had maybe a little trouble at home with his own wife. Can't you just hear all these men gathering as he's giving this edict? And, yeah. So what did the king think? The king said, "This advice pleased the king," the scripture tells us. And the king did as Memucan proposed. He sent letters to all the royal provinces, to every province in its own script, and to every people in its own language, that every man be master in his own household, and speak according to the language of his people. So right about now, you're probably thinking, John, what in the world does all this have to do with righteous things? Where does Esther come into all this? After all, all we got so far is 6 months of partying, a huge gathering at a banquet, a drunken king, a bunch of insecure, frustrated mess. Remember, as we talked about last week, God moves in mysterious ways. God is in the invisible ink working his magic. And God not only moves in mysterious ways, he often moves in mundane ways. Let me remind you, in Proverbs 21:1, the king's heart is a stream of water in the hand of the Lord. He turns it wherever he wills. God can move the hearts of the rulers of the world wherever and whenever he wishes. But let me remind you, God is never in a hurry. As the poet George Herbert wisely penned, God's mill grinds slow, but sure. So if we turn to Esther chapter 2, we realize that 4 years have gone by between chapters 1 and 2. What happened in those 4 years? What history books tell us. During those 4 years, King Hadassah made an ambitious but disastrous attempt to conquer Greece. He failed. So picture King Hadassah returning to his beautiful palace. He has no queen. With all that in mind, let's look at the beginning of chapter 2. After these things, when the anger of the king Hadassah was abated, he remembered Vashti, what she had done, what had decreed against her. Then the king's young men who attended him said, "Hey, let beautiful young virgins be sought out for the king. Let the king appoint the officers in all the provinces of his kingdom to gather all the beautiful young virgins to the harem in Susa, the citadel, under custody of Haggai, the king's eunuch, who is in charge of the women. Let their cosmetics be given them. Let the young women who please the king be queen instead of Vashti." This pleased the king, and so he did it. 4 years had passed since the king had disposed of his queen. His anger had fuzzled out. He was no longer drunk. He's speaking clear, but he's lonely. His servants see something happening in the master. He's moping around. He's depressed. Well, surely the plan that would not only get a wife for the king, but one that would assure that the new queen was the most beautiful woman in all of creation. So finally, this stage is set. God's invisible hand has been at work, right? In the invisible ink. We are finally introduced to the main character, Esther. Let me read on in verse 5 of chapter 2. Now there was a Jew in Susa, the citadel, whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, son of Shimei, son of Kish, a Benjaminite, bringing up Hadassah, that is, Esther, the daughter of his uncle, for she had neither father nor mother. The young woman had a beautiful figure, and was lovely to look at. When her father and mother died, Mordecai took her in as his own daughter. So when the king's order of this edict was proclaimed, and when many young women were gathered in Susa, the citadel, in custody of Haggai, Esther was also taken from the king's palace with Haggai, who had charge of the women. So don't miss this powerful transitional place. Now there was a Jew in Susa. Mordecai is totally unrelated to the king of the Persian kingdom. He was a Jew living out his years in exile, and he was raising his orphan cousin Esther. What do you learn about Esther? Well, we learned that she was orphaned, that she was beautiful, and that she was one of the girls chosen to be part of the Miss Persia pageant, and the winner of the contest would become the next queen. Although Esther must be honored and excited the next queen. That was what lessons can we learn from this part of Esther? There are many that come to mind. I'm going to share with you. First of all, we learned that there is great danger in getting drunk on wine or beer, whatever it might be. Just look at the trouble the king got into when he was drunk. That's why Scripture gives us very serious warning about coming under much influence of alcohol. 20 verse 1, wine is a mocker, and beer a brawler. Whoever is led astray by them is not wise. The New Testament tells us, do not get drunk on wine, which leads to debauchery. And debauchery is defined as extreme indulgence in sensuality and orgies. So if we